This episode is brought to you by America's Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833 ARC Rehab.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to the ARC.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the ARCcast. My name is Buddha.
I'm Vance.
I'm Michaela.
Yes, thank you guys for joining us. It's beautiful today in the studio. We're here. You know, we're going to be doing a couple episodes, but I just wanted to let the listeners know, just give you a fair warning before it happens. Some big old trucks pulled up. I don't know what they're doing, but they were making all kinds of noise yesterday. So if that ends up happening, if you hear a little bit of noise in the background, you know, nothing too abrasive, just jackhammers and saws and all this stuff is what they were doing yesterday. I just want to give you guys a heads up that you may hear that in the background, but hopefully we can take it out. So we'll see what's up. But today we have another very special guest. I swear this has been amazing. The people that we have coming in here, their stories are incredible. You know, I want to get started as soon as possible. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to our friend Emilio. What is going on?
How you guys doing?
All right, I should say
Emilio!
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah?
Happy to be here.
You're looking good, man. Your spirit is up and all that. It's good to see you like that, brother.
Like always, yeah. I'm
That's
happy
great.
to be here. It's nice to be on the other end instead of, inside, but it's always good.
That's cool. How much recovery do you have so far? How many days?
I have a little over 9 months.
Nice. All right.
One more time.
Yes.
Audience, I'm going to ask the audience to calm down, please, right now, So sorry, we're packed in here today. Well, that's great, man. That's awesome. Are you working right now?
Yeah, I'm working. I work, I sell tools at Ace Industrial Supply.
Shout out to Ace.
Yeah.
Man.
Right here in Tucson?
Yeah, right here, right down the street, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
From the ARC, okay.
Yeah. So, it's a different job that I've ever had.
Okay.
But, it's different. It's getting me out of my, comfort zone and stuff. So I
That's
like
cool.
How long have you been working there?
it. Been working there since June. So, about 5 months.
Okay.
Wow. That's awesome, brother. So you were a client here at ARC, right?
Yes, I was.
That's cool. So are you still coming to like the meetings and stuff like that?
Yeah, actually, when I got out of here I graduated in April 1st, actually. And
Are you lying? Because that's April Fool's Day, bro.
April Fool's,
I don't know
right?
if I could trust you right now.
Oh, yeah, honest to God, yeah. So April Fool's, I get out, and, I just wanted to do stuff a lot differently this time, because every time I got out, the last times I've been in here, I've been in the ARC in and out, 5-6 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and, this time when I got out, I wanted to go to meetings. I wanted to do, be involved more with the ARC and stuff. And
Yeah.
so I go to aftercare every Wednesday.
All right.
And I've been doing that for about 7 months now. Ray holds it, or Chris is there. And it's just good to see who's still in here and actually get that sense of the newcomer. It's always good to me to be, reminded how I got here, because, that's like pure want of recovery right there.
Yeah.
Thanks for your transparency and especially talking about how many times you've been in treatment. And I always try to encourage people, especially like yourself, to let people know, you know what, you need to get back on the playing field.
Yeah.
And that's in recovery, right? Because when you get back on the playing field, just like being that athlete, you can't have victory until you start practicing over and over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you have to do when you come to treatment.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you said that you were in ARC like 5 or 6 times. What about total? Were you in other treatment facilities before ARC as well?
My first treatment center was at CBI, and that was in Benson. And that was my first rehab experience. So this was in 2016, I want to say. And, it just got to that point where I was lying to myself and my family. And, my mom actually came into my room one day and was like, and I had a bottle of alcohol right next to my bed. And, and I had snuck into the house, so she didn't even know I was there. So I kind of startled her, when she walked in. But, I had a bottle of alcohol, and she came in, and I like took a swig of it, and I had been taken home by the cops like the week before, like a couple times, and it wasn't until then when my mom was like, "Hey, you need a," she sat me down, kind of like, "Hey, you need to go to rehab." Like,
Yeah.
we love you, we care about you, and I, the first time, obviously, I didn't want to get clean. I didn't want to stop drinking, stop doing drugs. But yeah, CBI was my first. I went there. I did complete it. But, when I got out, it wasn't a good experience because I wasn't ready,
Yeah.
and, I haven't felt, because it was always either doing it for my family or doing it for a girlfriend or something like that. And that first time, and I know people get it their first time, but I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
You
You and me both, bro.
Yeah.
Man, well, I want to go into what you feel was like the difference and stuff, this last time that you were here. But, before we get to that, I would really like to dive into the beginning, of where you were born and how you were brought up and things like that, just to kind of get a bigger picture of how everything started in your life.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So are you from Tucson? Are you born here?
No, I wasn't born here. I was actually born in Bisbee, Arizona. I was born and raised in Bisbee.
Beautiful place, man.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate it now, but it was a little different growing up, small town.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows each other's business. And it was crazy. And it's a lot different from up here, But yeah, I was born and raised there. I went to school. I come from a good family. My mom's a teacher. My dad worked for the city. But, I graduated there and then moved to Phoenix.
Okay. How old were you when you moved?
Yeah, I was it was like 2 weeks after I graduated.
Okay.
Bisbee High School. I moved to Phoenix with my brother, and kind of wanted to step out of the small town, get kind of the big city vibes and stuff. And it was a shocker, that's for sure.
So this was after high school?
Yeah, this was after high
So
school.
before that, when middle school, high school days, were you using at the time, drinking or anything?
I didn't. I would dabble in drinking a little bit here and there, but mostly I was getting in trouble. Like I was, down in Bisbee, it's like 10 minutes away from the border.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I started, kind of acting out and getting in trouble and stuff, and a little bit of drinking. But me and like a few of my friends were running drugs across the border.
Oh, dang.
And we were like 16 years old. And we would go down there, buy pounds of weed, and we would come back over. And, I had been doing it for a long time, and for about a year. And then I think it was after my junior year, I got caught. I was going down there. It seemed kind of like a weird day, but I was going across the border, and the border patrol, the customs agent, told me to step out of the truck. And I was like, I got this crazy feeling all over me. Like it felt like a dream, it didn't even feel real. But, they told me to step away from my truck and open the hood. And that's where I had all the stuff. So they opened the hood. I was 17 then.
Man.
And that was like my first experience with like the cops or getting in trouble real like
forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause they could have, like sent me to prison, obviously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was crazy. They just called my parents. They're like, well, what's your parents' numbers? Where do they live? I said in Bisbee.
Ugh.
And they called them, and that was probably worse than the cops.
I'm over here like, oh my God, my poor mom.
And they're like, who do you want me to call, your mom or dad? And I'm pretty sure I told my dad to come down, but both of them showed up, and I was crazy. They held me in a cell for about 8 hours, and I was freaking out. Like that was my first time encountering any like police enforcement or anything, and I was scared. But they let me go. They asked me if I was my first time. I was like, yeah, it's my first time, and they just let me go, and that was like the start of where I started to like get in trouble, start drinking more. And it's small town. Bisbee is about 6,000 people, so everybody heard about this.
Oh my Lord.
And man, it took a couple years that's partly why I wanted to move.
So let me ask you, like living in that small town, I know you said that you were just kind of dabbling like all kids do when they're in high school, right? How did you get associated with people? Because I mean, I know it's a dangerous territory, you know, but how did you get associated with people to the point, you know, where you were bringing stuff back and forth? Like, it was just the people you were hanging out with?
Yeah, it was just other students. Like, I knew of this student that one of my friends, you know, one of my friends that would do it, and I knew he was doing it because he always had money, always had like fresh clothes, fresh Jordans on, you know, like everything. And I saw that, and I was like, you know, I want that stuff because I didn't have a job, or you know, I was just going to school and playing sports, you know, being a kid. But I was like, I want some money. And then, you know, I asked him, and his family and stuff was involved in it a little bit. And so I asked him, and we were down there one day, and it kind of just like got brought up, like, oh, you can fit this many in here and in my truck. Man. And I was like, and how much will I make? And they told me, and I was like, yeah, because I mean, when I'm 17, like even a little, it was, I think I only made like a few $100, but I mean,
but when you're a high schooler, that's a lot.
Yeah, when you're in high school, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And so I did it, and it went smooth. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to do this, you know?
Wow.
Do you think when the cops just let you go that gave you like this false sense of like, oh, well, I can just get away with it? Like, they'll just let me go.
Yeah. And that was like the routine I had in Bisbee, like many years later. But yeah, I did have like, oh, I can get away with anything now, especially here.
Yeah, because it's like that's like a pretty big deal. Yeah. I mean, like, I got pulled over for just accidentally kind of running a red light, and I was like, and like I didn't even have anything bad, but I was like panicking. So I can't imagine, like, I feel like that would like just, I'm a goody two shoes, though, follower. So
it's amazing though too, because when you start going down that wrong path, I mean, you have that bad voice. You know, some people call it the devil. That's what I think it is. But that voice starts talking to you and say, "Hey, you got this. You're good, bro. That's not going to happen."
Makes
to you
you feel like invincible. Like,
it does.
Yep.
It does. And it took over. You know.
Well, and it probably also created a different kind of rush. Like,
oh yeah,
you get that adrenaline that in itself, like, people can be addicted to an adrenaline rush, you know?
Yep. Yeah. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. So that's where it like started. And yeah, like you said, that adrenaline rush when I was like crossing, and then when I would, you know, before I got caught, you know, get away with it, I'd be like, oh yeah, now I'm going to get paid, and I can go buy clothes, I can do this, I can do that, you know. And it was like right now I think about it, I'm like, damn, what the heck was I thinking, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first, you know, encounterment with law enforcement. I got away, and
this one's for you, bro.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Man,
I don't have to run away now, though.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you always know where you're at when you hear that noise, so you don't jump up.
Like,
you know? Yeah, you're good. So that was part of the reason why you ended up moving, was just to kind of get away from all of the 6,000 people in your business?
Yeah, because, you know, it's just a small town. You know, everybody found out what I was doing, and I just kind of wanted to run away, get as far away as I could. And the opportunity came, you know, after I graduated high school. My brother had just graduated the U of A, and he was moving to Phoenix and, you know, getting a job up there. So he asked me to move in with him, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to miss this opportunity. Phoenix is a big city, a lot of jobs, a lot of, you know, opportunities and stuff. And that's when I moved up there, and, you know, I was going to school up there, Paradise Valley.
That's cool. What were you going to school for?
I was just trying to get like my associate's degree out of the way. I wasn't going for any in particular subject or anything like that.
It was prereqs.
Yeah, just yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
And so when you were in Phoenix, is that when things started getting really, really bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after my year of kind of like settling down in Phoenix and like kind of getting acquainted with the town or the city and all the people I was working with, I got a job in a kitchen washing dishes at this little Mexican place. And, you know, I really loved it. And, you know, I was pretty good. I was fast. And I did good at it. And so they moved me up to a cook.
Okay.
And, by that time, I was still going to school, still working every day. And it wasn't until year 2 came along and these, my coworkers, we all, smoked weed. And that's when I started smoking weed a lot. And yeah, it wasn't until then we would smoke weed. And, one day, one of my coworkers came up to me and he had a Percocet. Mm-hmm. And it was like, those blue Percocets, 30 mils. And
fentanyl or the actual
No,
Percocet?
It was the actual Percocets.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't know what they were. I knew what pills were. I knew what they could do to you, but they were like, oh, we should do it and like that. And so we all took one. And I just remember it didn't hit me until like an hour, but I remember going home and laying on my bed and just like feeling this, I don't even know how to explain it. Like that was my first time actually doing something like drug-wise, hard drugs. And I just laid on my bed and listened to music. And honestly, it was a great feeling. Like,
yeah.
And, I wanted that every day.
I remember Chris, we had Chris in here and he said it felt like he was being hugged by a higher power and comforted while he was surrounded by like a fire or something. Like he had like a crazy analogy.
He did. I remember.
Yeah, and that's all I could think of is it probably was just like the most tranquil, calming, relaxing feeling in the world.
It was. Yeah, it was. And I wanted to feel that. Like I wanted that feeling all the time,
Man.
But yeah, that first time was with a pill. And yeah, like Chris said, that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah.
But I would still smoke weed and I would do it on the weekends. And then I would do it on the weekends. Then it was, okay, I'll do it before work. And then it was like, okay, I'll do it, then it was like 5 days a week. And then pretty soon, before I knew it, I was popping these things like candy.
Jeez.
And then someone told me, oh yeah, you can smoke them.
How were you getting them?
My coworker had this guy that would get prescription pills and, that's who I would get it from. I'd give him money and he was like the middleman,
So you always had enough like for your addiction? You never had to kick it or go through like the withdrawal? Nothing?
No.
Wow.
No, because I was making some good money and even though they were pretty expensive back then. And
yeah.
And I wasn't doing too many of them. Like I was probably doing maybe one a day.
Yeah.
But then it just progressed and progressed. And by year 3, I had moved out of my brother's because he found out that I was using drugs. And, my brother is like the complete opposite of me. He doesn't do drugs. He's real, he's real stern about that kind of stuff.
So you were out there pretty much as like older brother. He's going to kind of put you under his wing.
Yeah.
Keep you safe.
Yeah.
Helping your parents out type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
if you guys hear that noise in the background, they have turned those engines on. So, Lord, please keep those decibels low and don't let the listeners hear all that noise.
Do you think that first pill was like the start of your addiction with that feeling you got initially? Like it was a one and done?
Yeah, I think after that one, even though I didn't know it at the time, like I think back on it now and that one pill, I think that's what did it,
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Because I know I see a trend. Sometimes people are like at the first time, like it was it, or like it was a progressive thing. But to me, I'm like, that kind of seems like it was just a one and done type deal.
Yeah. And I didn't even care or think about the consequences because all I wanted was to feel that feeling again.
And so
like
really it
all
was one
the
and
time.
really it was just one and just begun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you're done, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So I wanted that, I wanted that feeling every day.
Yep.
And it was like no other feeling. I didn't feel like that normally. And it's just like the euphoria and I could talk, I could be more social to people when I was on either drugs or drinking and then both at the same time, because I was real quiet when I was a kid, I was, I kind of kept to myself. I picked on a lot.
Yeah.
And, as I grew up, I wanted people to accept me and the way I figured people would accept me and the way I found out that if I was, outgoing and funny and stuff, then they would accept me. That's what I thought. And by doing these drugs, I was one of them, you know, especially with my coworkers. I was one of them, and I felt like part of the team, you know, and it kind of gave me courage, drinking and doing the drugs every day. Yeah, I felt, I don't even know how to explain it.
All right, so the relationships, I'm guessing, started crumbling, the relationship with you and your brother. What did he do when he found out you were using?
So by that time, this is year 2 still, and I had started smoking them.
Oh,
you know, and you know, me and my coworkers started smoking them, and he found a rolled up dollar bill in my room, and it was all black with, you know, all that.
And for the people who don't use, that are not in recovery, what is the difference from smoking it versus just swallowing it whole?
So when you just take it, it takes like 30 minutes for it to kick in. But when you smoke it, you know, you get that immediate high.
All right. So he found your stuff around the house.
Yeah. He found my stuff, and him and my sister sat me down and was like, you know, hey, you know, what's going on? Do we need to do something about this? Like, because they didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And what I told them is that I was smoking weed with it, like smoking like wax.
Yeah.
And I know they didn't believe me, but they were like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know,
As a sibling, like, I mean, not even related to like drugs specifically, but siblings know, like, you know when your like sister or brother are just straight up lying to you. You just know.
There's a certain like just an energy in your household when you're raised with parents and people around you, where it's like if anything is off,
you see it.
You see it right away.
See it right away.
Yeah, man. That's okay. So you said you found your stuff. You were lying about it. Was that something you were really good at? Was keeping it like a secret? People didn't know what you were doing. How long did that last?
You know, at first I was real good about keeping it a secret. My brother, you know, my sister, they knew I was lying, but they wanted to keep an eye on me, and I was smoking weed a lot, and they knew that, you know. But that's when I moved out of my brother. So when they caught me and you know, called me out, I was like, okay, I need to get out of my brother's, because, you know, I don't want him knowing what I'm doing or how I'm doing it or anything like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he moved across town. That's when I got, you know, apartment with my friend. And that's when another friend told me about heroin. And, you know, that's where I was introduced. He was like, oh yeah, you know, you should try this. It's cheaper. It'll get you higher. And I, you know, I knew what heroin was and growing up and stuff. But I think I was already too far into my addiction to say no. Because I tried it, and I didn't do those pills for a long time, you know?
Yeah.
So that's when I started smoking heroin.
And during this time when you moved into your new apartment with your friend, had you experienced the withdrawals? Were there times where you couldn't afford to get those pills anymore?
It wasn't, no, actually, that's kind of the weird part, because I didn't experience the withdrawals or anything until I moved. So I stayed in Phoenix for 3 years. And, you know, at year 3, that's when I started doing heavy heroin use.
Yeah.
And all this use, I stopped going to school. You know, I eventually dropped out of college and moved out of that apartment I was in.
Yeah.
And then I quit my job, you know, and it all happened within like a matter of a month. It's just, everything just kind of hit me all at once. And that's when I was just like spending everything I could on the drug.
Man.
And, you know, I did not care. And I didn't have withdrawals until I was out of my apartment, out of school, and didn't have a job. And I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my brother or sister what I was doing or how I was doing it, because I was ashamed. You know, I didn't want to tell them. I had fear that, you know, what they were going to think of me. And I had to, you know, face my problems on my own. I thought back then. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know about detox. And I didn't know about detox until, you know, I finally moved out and didn't have a job, so I couldn't pay for anything. And once those withdrawals hit me, that was the first time I had experienced that. And it was the worst thing, you know, I had ever gone through. I didn't know about it. I was like, And when I was going through it, I remember saying like, oh, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to try to detox on my own. And, but as soon as I got some more money, that was back there with the drugs. And that just seemed to be like a recurring thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you end up on the streets or anything? Were you able to maintain like a living situation at this point?
So after I moved from Phoenix, I was still doing drugs a lot. And that's when I moved here to Tucson.
Okay.
And this was in probably 2012. And I moved in with a buddy, and he didn't charge me any rent. He was a good friend of mine from school. He said, yeah, and none of my friends knew. I was keeping it like a great secret from everybody, from my mom, from my dad, my brother, sister, all my friends. So my friend didn't know what I was doing. He just thought I was moving from Phoenix. So I moved in with him, and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a lot of money. I had a car, but that was about it.
Yeah.
And I still had this addiction. And so when I moved in with him, I would come up to Phoenix, drive all the way up to Phoenix,
man,
and go all the way back down. And I was asking for money from my parents, and they didn't know what it was for. But soon it was like every week asking for like $200-$300, for rent or food or this or that. And I remember them asking me, is everything all right? Why are you asking for so much money?
Yeah.
And, I didn't know what to tell them. I didn't want to say, yeah, I was using drugs, but I think my mom knew from the beginning, because your mom can always tell, right?
Intuition.
Mom knows.
Mom knows everything, just by looking at me. But, yeah, so I kept it under wraps for a long time from my friends, family. And I didn't get a job. I got a job. I would hold down a job for like a month, at this place with my friend, hold down a job for a month, and then just try to get drugs. And then I would detox for about 3 days, and I would just be curled up in my room and on my bed that was, no frame or anything. And, my friend was just like, he didn't ask any questions. He didn't really know.
Yeah.
But, I'm pretty sure he knew something was going on. But, me sweating like in my room, just sicker than a dog, I'm pretty sure he knew something was going on. Yeah.
This guy's a lot weirder than
right, exactly.
in high school.
Yeah.
And do you still have a relationship with that friend? Or
yeah, I do, actually.
Because I always wonder, like, if one of my good friends went down that road, like, would I just be their safe place? Like, not give them extra money, but be their safe place so that I know they're, like, not on the streets. Maybe he was just your safe place.
Yeah, because he never asked me about it, never, asked what was going on or anything like that. I only could stay in Tucson for a little bit because I was just running out of money, and I felt bad for not paying rent or anything. Yeah. And this is when I was, maybe 21, still early in my addiction. Wow. I didn't have the connections or what I did, I used to have.
Yeah.
It was just early. I didn't know where to get it. I didn't know what to do or anything. It was all new to me. And, I only stayed in Tucson for about 4 or 5 months, and I moved back down to Bisbee.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And I always told myself I didn't want to go back because how it was, I got caught, and I know a lot of people, and then using, that just, it was a big mistake, Yeah. But when I went there, I had detoxed off of heroin, and I don't know how I did it, but I spent like a week in my room, just curled up into a ball, sweating, throwing up, sicker than a dog, just so my mom and dad wouldn't find out.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got down there, I was okay for a little bit. But then by the time I knew it, I was asking just random people that I would see like in the bars and stuff if they knew where to get any pills or just, and not, yeah. And I don't know. It's
amazing how much effort we put into it, huh?
Yeah, I think about it now and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I put that much effort into that. And I still had a car. And so sometimes I would go to Phoenix and, do my thing and then come back down.
Man.
But
And when did recovery come into your mind for the first time? Like, when did you, decide that this was something had to change? Did your parents, I'm guessing they eventually found out, your friend, everyone,
Oh yeah, everybody found out pretty quick when I was, especially when I moved down there,
Yeah.
But it wasn't until 2017 in CBI. So it was a long period of time, from 19 years old, 2010 to 2017 when I first got introduced to like the meetings and, working actually a program and being in a rehab environment.
Yeah.
So all these, 7-8 years had passed by, and it was just this reoccurring thing of me trying to get a job, trying to hold down a job, and then, eventually using all of my money for my drug and not going in, not paying rent, doing something to get kicked out of my mom's house. And this trend just kept happening over and over and over again until 2017. And then before that, I was just in Bisbee. Like when I was 17, I got caught at the border and they let me go. My family was real close to all the cops and stuff in Bisbee. So every time I would get pulled over for like a DUI or anything like that, or drunk on the street, or doing something, they would take me home.
Man.
And they wouldn't take me to jail. They would take me home. And I remember this one time I got pulled over in my mom's car, and this cop pulled me over, said, put your hands behind your back. I got, put my hands behind my back, put me in the car, and I thought he was taking me to jail. And, he took me right to my mom's house, knocked on the door, and my mom was like, no, take him to jail. Take him to jail. I don't want to see him. I don't want to. This is like the third time this week that he's been taken home by the cops.
Oh man!
Like, and it was like either like drunk in public, or that time I was drinking and doing a lot of pills, and so that I never got in trouble. I never found the consequences to my actions. I was just taken home, and finally my mom was like, "All right, you need to go to rehab." And finally, I was grateful enough to go into treatment, and my mom and dad paid for it, like out of pocket.
Wow.
To go to CBI. And I'm so grateful, that they did that, because even though I did relapse afterwards, I think about it now, and every experience that I had, it's kind of taught me a lesson of how I'm doing stuff now.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of stuff happen when I was in CBI. So I got in there, and my aunt was very sick. She had stomach problems, adhesions and stuff. So when I was in there, she had a surgery, and my mom called me, and I was about maybe 20 days into rehab, and she said that my aunt had passed away. And this was like the first time that I had a real close loved one pass away, because she was like a mom to me. She helped raise me. That's what my mom told me. She helped raise me when I was a little baby. But we're growing up, when I was a young kid, I always was hanging out with her. She was real funny. We would always laugh and play jokes and, watch cartoons and stuff like that. And she was really like a mother to me, a second mother. And I really looked up to her in a lot of ways. And when I found out that she had passed away, I was just heartbroken. I was devastated, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I just broke down, but I did complete the program. I don't know how, but I just toughed it out, but I didn't talk about it. Now that part of my life when I was younger, I did not talk about anything. I kept it all in, and I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want anybody to know or anything like that I was hurting. So when that happened and I got out of CBI, my parents had got me an apartment, and I moved into that, and I immediately started drinking again, immediately. And I didn't go to meetings. I wasn't seeing a therapist. I wasn't doing anything for a program. I would hit a meeting here and there, but at the meeting I was so fearful of going and telling people that I was an alcoholic or addict that I just didn't go. I just didn't go altogether. And I honestly thought these people were joking. Like Like, there's no way that you could be this happy and,
and sober.
Like, and I just didn't trust them. And eventually I started drinking, immediately after that, I started drinking. And then I was, again, heavy in my heroin use.
Man.
And then, and this is just, it was a reoccurring thing. I would get a job, I would do good, and I would like self-sabotage myself, into doing something bad. I had a good job. By the grace of God, I had a good job when I was at my new apartment after CBI. I was at BJ's Brew House right on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's a good spot.
I just stayed by that hotel, or a hotel right by the restaurant.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, I would do this thing about, getting a job and hold it down for a little bit. I was still drinking a lot, but I would hold it down for a little bit. I would do good, work my way up. And then once everything was going good in my life, I would just sabotage everything. I would stop going to work. I would be heavy into my addiction.
Do you think it was the fact that you weren't ready mixed with like that false thought process of like, I already did this once, I'll be okay now? Like, what do you think was keeping you down there?
I think what was keeping me down there was that I could do this for the rest of my life and have a job and hold it down. I really thought that I could drink, do drugs forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Functioning addict.
Yeah, I was really trying my hardest to be a functioning addict, but I was not working. Yeah, every time I tried, it was just the same thing over and over again.
Oh, man.
And this, was 5-6 times over. I would get a good job, and I was working in the restaurants. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of drugs in the restaurant business, in the back of the house. And at the job, a lot of restaurants, they might know that you're doing your thing, but as long as you come in and do your stuff, they don't really care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I forgot to ask you in the beginning when we started, was there any addictions in your household growing up, like from your mother's side or your father's side, that you were aware of?
No. I have never seen my parents drunk.
No,
nothing like that. I've never, and still to this day, they don't drink alcohol, they don't use drugs, neither of them. But my sister and brother, they drink, but socially, my sister is an alcoholic. But, there was nothing too crazy when I was growing up that I saw.
Yeah.
Only what I saw in movies. I didn't know what addiction was.
Yeah, no, I understand. And that's an interesting thing because it makes you realize how much we need to educate, even if we're not drinkers or whatever. We have to educate our kids on the abuse of alcohol and drugs because we talked about it in a couple episodes. Somebody goes out into the real world and all of a sudden they see people drinking. They've never had experience with alcohol or seen anybody drink it,
Yeah.
And now they're wilding out. They're out there just going crazy.
Yeah, like nothing.
Yeah. I mean, my family, they talked about addiction growing up, starting from a really young age. Like, I never saw my parents drink. I never really saw them drunk. I think the first time I ever saw my mom drunk, I was like 19. Like, and it was an accident. She had no idea there was alcohol in the drink. So it was like not even on purpose. But they did, I think they scared addiction into my mind because addiction ran in my family. So that's why I was like never intrigued to try or to do anything because I'm like, I'm going to be that person that is addicted from the beginning. And then watching my cousin go through it, my cousin started his addiction when I was like 13 or 14.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, I was like, I do not want to be like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be experiencing that. And so I just never ever tried. But then my friend would be like, what are you talking about? My parents drink wine every night. Like, every household is so different that you never really, and not that one way is right or wrong because there isn't. And I think that it's going to be up to however, what we decide we want to do or what gives us that adrenaline rush. For me, I like to read. I was a loser.
No, you're not a loser. That's great. That's a skill I wish that I would have implemented a lot more when I was younger. But I mean, even having young kids, I've noticed my daughter and my son, they had their personalities when they were born.
Yeah.
And they're polar opposites where my son is more cautious and more aware of his surroundings. My daughter, la, 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 la. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's a mixture of a lot of things.
Yeah,
man.
it depends, right?
Yeah. So when when did you come to ARC for the first time?
I came to ARC for the first time, and I think it was in 2018.
Yeah.
It had just opened.
Oh, okay.
And that was my first time. I had, moved out of my apartment. Not moved out. I was evicted out of my apartment.
Yeah.
And I was on the streets. And that was my first experience on, living on the streets and homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in contact with any of my family, but I came to ARC because my mom had told me about it. And she sat me down and, gave me this long talk about, do I want my life to be like this for the rest of my life?
How did she get in contact with you at this time?
So at this time, I was living on the streets, and I had a girlfriend at the time. She had a place.
Okay.
But she wouldn't allow me there all the time. So I would switch houses going around, from all the houses, drug houses and stuff. But I was in contact with her because I was, at this point, I was shooting up. And, I guess, I don't know what happened, but I got an abscess on my arm.
Oh, man.
And I was in bed with my arm triple the size of it is now. It was huge, and I was in so much pain, and I couldn't leave because I was in pain and I was dope sick, and
God.
I had waited so long to go to the hospital, and I finally told my girlfriend, I was like, we need to go, or I don't even know what's going to happen. So, she called the ambulance. The ambulance came. I told them I was IV drug user, and they took me to TMC. And then I had not talked to my mom or dad in, I want to say almost a year at this time, or my brother or sister, not in contact with anybody. And they're the ones that got me that place. But after that, after I evicted, nothing. So my girlfriend contacted my mom, and I was sitting in the waiting room at the hospital, and I was, 150 pounds. My hair was just everywhere. I was dirty. And my arm was just swollen so much. And I was in this they had sat me in a wheelchair. And I see my mom and my sister walk in. And I will never forget the look on their face when they saw me. It was just, they were in shock. They didn't even recognize me. I was so skinny. I was just so messed up. They did not recognize me. And they came up to me and, gave me a big hug, and they were crying, and I was crying, and I hadn't seen them in over, it was months. And it was just that was the hardest thing, to see my mom and sister like that, especially there.
And at this point, it's you can't hide anything anymore. You're more exposed than you ever have or ever wanted to be. You're just there. You just have to suck it up at that point.
Yeah. And that was the first time, actually admitted it to my family that I was using drugs.
Yeah.
Because it was always, they just thought, maybe I was drinking or a lot, heavily drinking. But so when I saw them, they sat with me for, it seemed like forever, hours in that waiting room. But I was such in this mindset of, I was dope sick. And I told my mom that they were taking too long and that I had to leave. And my arm is this big, And she's like, no, what do you mean they're going to take you in right now? I said, no, I'm leaving. And I literally got up, left, and I was like, I promised my mom, I'll come back tomorrow. And so I left, just walked out of the hospital. And then, finally the next morning came, and I was able to get well and go back to the hospital. And I'm so thankful that they got me in within a half an hour. But I was in the hospital for about 30 days.
So dangerous, man.
Yeah. They had to remove my vein from my arm. So I have they removed it from here to my shoulder. That was an eye opener, getting out of the hospital and having this freaking huge, it's huge. And it was open. It was an open wound after that. And I had a suck vac, and my mom was coming to visit me every day in the hospital. That was the first time I was like, what am I doing, And that had already been 7 years, 8 years.
So you were clean in the hospital at this point because you had to be, right? No?
No.
You were using in the hospital too?
Well, they had to, since I was a drug addict and I was going into surgery, they had put me on a protocol. So I was on Percocets, methadone, Dilaudid. I was
Holy
on all these things in the hospital. And when I got out, I was only on methadone, but I was on so much shit in there, that, I just wanted more. So it lasted maybe 20 days just on the methadone.
Man.
And then I was immediately back to sticking a needle into my arm. And I have this.
Even after that,
I was, that's just crazy. And I was still trying to take care of my wound, and I was sticking a needle in my other arm.
Yeah. Man.
So is that around the time that you came to ARC, or that was a little bit before?
That was right before. And I was in contact with my mom, and that's when I got into the ARC. And, I went through detox, and then I think I only made it like 2 weeks in residential, and then I just left. I had a little argument with one of the workers, and then I was like, well, F this, I'm out. And so I left, and I was back 2 weeks later. And thankfully they let me back.
Man.
But I was not, and then I completed the program then. Here, that was the first time.
So this last time that you were here, what do you feel in your heart was the thing that changed, that makes you who you are today? Because, standing here, you have a brightness about you that I'm sure was probably unrecognizable for yourself to even look in the mirror and see it.
Oh, yeah.
Until a certain point,
Yeah, it was. What's different about this time is, in treatment and in the ARC and stuff, I don't think I took it seriously.
Yeah.
I didn't take it serious enough. I didn't think that, I thought that I could get out and do it on my own, every time. I thought that with enough willpower, I could get clean just on my own. I didn't want to hear about meetings. I didn't want to hear about anything. And I would always get out with like all happy and, happy to get out. But this time when I got out, I was scared. I was like in fear of getting out because I was so afraid to relapse again, and be drugged down to where my rock bottom was. A couple weeks before I got out, I think like the realization had hit me that I'm going to be out in the real world. And it was the first time that I did not want to use, and that I was just fearful of using and then getting back into where I was, that person that I did not like, and so I got out and I told myself that I was going to do things differently, and I was going to take suggestions and, go to meetings and get a sponsor and, work these little baby steps that everybody tells me to work. Because in 2020, I got out of ARC. I was clean for about a year, but I wasn't working a program, wasn't doing anything for myself in my recovery. And as soon as something bad happened, I immediately relapsed. This time, a lot of bad things have happened, and I have all these tools around me, that I could talk to my sponsor, I could talk to my roommates. I have all these things that I could do now, but I don't know what it was, but I felt that readiness. I was ready to move on and be the person that I was supposed to be,
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, I just that feeling of using, it's just a powerful feeling when it takes over you.
Mm-hmm. I find it so interesting, especially in the time that we live in right now, that it's like we're not supposed to talk about our feelings, and I feel like lately there's been a shift towards, more people are going to therapy and more people are talking about things. But for so long, it was ingrained into our heads to just keep it to ourselves and put on this smile and just be okay. And it's crazy how that can take over inside of you, where it's so hard to just look at yourself in the mirror. And it's like, how much different would people's recovery journeys be if we weren't taught that for so long? Would there be less relapses? Would there be, even an addiction at all? Because we weren't trained to just bottle it all up and then try to numb what we're bottling,
Yeah.
I think that's so, in everyone we hear, we're hiding something or keeping something locked up that we don't want to share.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't help us.
Yeah.
But we think it's the thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I just really appreciate everything that he was sharing because everything he was talking about is all biblical. And so it talks about the flesh and desires of your eyes and pride of your life and where money leads you and all this stuff. So I just really wanted to listen to his story and just go all through the scripture where it talks about how this was going to happen. And that's why I let people know there are many roads to recovery. And once we decide to start denying our flesh, like the Bible says, we actually become that new creation. And so it doesn't mean that the temptations aren't going to come back, but we have to learn how to say no to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just really appreciate his testimony.
The transparency leads to transformation. You know, and hearing your story, and there's no disrespect. I only say this because I can see a lot of myself in that story.
I saw mine too.
I hear a lot of, you know, the pride. Like, oh, I got to get away. I don't want people to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't want to admit to my family. I got to hide it. But in all honesty, just like Michaela said, like the more you open up, you know, living in a small town. It's funny when you were talking about how, you know, the police would take you directly to your house.
Yeah.
You know, a couple times it's cool. Like, it's cool to have that hookup of like they love and care about you enough that they're not going to throw, you know, all of these expenses and tickets and all these things on you. But at a certain point, it's like, you know, it works against it.
Yeah, it does.
They're not teaching you any discipline, you know? And in reality, like, by opening yourself up and admitting to your parents when that was the last thing you ever wanted to do, but by opening up and admitting, you're allowing that healing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's amazing how that voice in your head is just like, nah, dude, hide it.
Yeah, hide it.
That, you know, you're good. You got this. They don't need to know. They don't need to know.
Yeah.
When it's so, like, to me, I'd be so curious to know, like, where that first thought ever entered our mind. Because, like, you know, it happened when we were way, way younger.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, is it because we didn't want, like, kids to see us cry on the playground or something because we stubbed our toe? Or, like, what was that first thing where we, like, no, hide your emotion? Because emotions aren't bad. We wouldn't have been given emotions if they were bad, you know?
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, I think of some of the older people in my life that had passed through. There was a lot of that growing up. I mean, raised with the, you know, I don't speak Spanish very well, but they used to say, you know, what's the gente gonna think? Like, what are they gonna think if they see that we're, you know,
You're doing that.
we're all humans. We all suffer. How are we supposed to help each other heal if we act perfect all the time?
Yeah.
That's not reality.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was a huge thing for me. Yeah. Just keeping it all inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly like you said, once I was able to share with someone and have people I trust, like even my family, you know, having someone I trust to just tell all these things that I was just bottling up inside, that, you know, I was addicted and, you know, what I was doing and all this bad stuff, you know, that you get this sense of like a weight just lifted off of you. And it's crazy.
So I started therapy a few weeks ago, and one of the things that she said is we all have baggage, but we can control how heavy the baggage is. So if we don't deal with it, it just gets heavier because we just keep stuffing it into the bag. But if we deal with it, we have the baggage, but it's easier to carry because we have the like tools. And I was like, I'm an analogies person. So for me, that like really stuck with me. I'm like, that's cool because we all have things we've gone through. I mean, there's not one person here that's just living their best life, you know? There are people, though, that are living their best lives because they've handled all the things that have gone on in their life. Yeah. And it was just so interesting to me to hear it, like, in that terminology because it is, like, once you deal with it, it's really not as hard to bring with you.
Yeah.
Especially once you found that love and people that are willing to be like, oh, well, you know, they're not judging me for the things that I'm opening up about. Like, they want to help me heal. Or maybe you find out that maybe somebody else in your family has experienced the same thing that they were prideful about admitting in the first place.
Well, yeah. That's what happened to, you know, me and my sibling. You know, me and her are very similar. Yeah. And, you know, now we're comfortable enough to talk about, you know, addiction and how we've gone through it and what we're doing.
That's great, brother.
Now. And, it's just really great to talk about it because I was just putting on this like facade of how I thought I should be and not being like the person that really is me.
So have you are you close again with your family now that you're on this other side?
Oh yeah, that's definitely. You know, even when I was in my addiction, I was so grateful to have my family there.
Yeah.
You know, just in contact with them, but now it's just gotten, I have a great relationship with my mom and my dad. I call my mom every morning. You know, me and my dad get along great. And then, you know, my brother and sister, we have this we have a great relationship now. Mm-hmm. And, if I was still using, that would never happen.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and going from pride to humility, because there's 100 Bible verses that talks about how pride is all sin. And I'll just read this one. Proverbs 11:2 says this: when a person is prideful, it comes from disgrace. But when that person is humble, it's because you have wisdom now.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. That's great.
That's beautiful, man.
It is.
So I want to say thanks, man.
Yeah.
I guess a good way to always end these is, what would be one thing that you would say to someone who is still struggling that maybe needs a little bit of encouragement?
Yeah. Well, that's I'm glad you asked that, because that's kind of the main thing why I wanted to do this. I know I don't have a lot of clean time, and I'm obviously, everybody is working on their recovery. But I have, a little over 9 months, but I wanted to do this because when I got out of rehab, what I suggest is, if you don't have a solid place to go, is to get in a recovery home. And it could be any kind. And just form like a group of like-minded people around you that, that you trust and you can tell anything to, because that's what I did. And that's what's working for me, and I know I'm not here to speak for anybody, but this is what's working for me. Is to, I listen to these suggestions now that I never thought I would. Mm-hmm. I go to meetings. I have a sponsor. I'm doing all these things. I'm involved with my house, like service work, and, just having these people that are willing to be clean with you and do all the work that goes into it around you, surrounded by your, like-minded people, then you're going to succeed.
Community.
Yeah.
And that's biblical too.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
And it's such NA, and the house I live in is such a big community. We do all these things together, and in my house, these guys are all, they want it, and I have people at work. I work at this place where everybody's in recovery, and it's like all my life now is like a big NA meeting.
Yeah.
I have all these people around me that.
But it's encouraging, and it's like, I know that I think there's a scripture somewhere in the Bible, I cannot even recall which one, but it's like, when you surround yourself by people who are not going to let you stumble,
yeah,
it's gonna build you stronger. And they always say the braided thing, like 2 or 3 are stronger than one, and it's like you're setting yourself up for success, and you're willing to maybe do something different, which is, it takes, a lot of courage to not do your old way until, leave everything in the past.
Heck yeah. Breaking generational curses, brother. That's what you're doing, man. And you know what? God's favorites have it the hardest. You've gone down a very dark road, but you know what? You understand what it's like, and your testimony, the way that I feel is, especially being on a microphone where people can hear it, every time you speak your testimony, you get a little bit of that weight taken away from you.
Yeah.
So I hope and pray this episode gets heard by a bunch of people. That weight just going to disappear, brother.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate you guys having me here. This is like a therapy session. I don't even know it,
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. I'm so glad, brother. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to our homeboy Emilio one more time.
Thank you, guys.
And God's awesome too. You notice that truck didn't stay very long.
I know.
So we didn't have to hear the jackhammering and all that. Thank you very much for coming, brother. We wish you the best of luck. You know that if you ever need anything, you got my number now. We're always here for you, brother. Wishing you the best of luck in everything that you do, man, for reals. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your testimony.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you having me here.
Heck yeah, man. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the ARCcast. Stay tuned afterwards. Check out the commercial, all of that fancy stuff. Much love. God bless you guys, and we will talk to you on the next one. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the ARCcast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody you need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the ARCcast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.